Tonight on First at 9 this Saturday the 28th of June 2025. High seas catastrophe. 2 fishing vessels capsize in separate incidents off the coasts of Galle and Beruala. Rescue missions still ongoing in search of missing fishermen. Safety first. President emphasizes the importance of safe and efficient public transport as Sri Lanka moves to modernize over 100 railway stations. Seatbelts mandatory for bus drivers from July 1st. Familiar seat. SSP Shania Besekara reappointed the director of the Criminal Investigation Department. Birthright citizenship. US Supreme Court hands Trump administration a major victory in his mission to revoke birthright citizenship by curbing the ability of judges to impede his policies nationwide.
Cinec Campus Open Day. May masa 3 වෙනි දින උදෑසන 9 සිට Cinec Campus පරිශ්‍රයේදී.
Enrolling now for the June 2025 intake and complete your degree in 2 years.
This is Derana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening and welcome to Derana First at 9, Sri Lanka's most trusted news source. I'm Tatya Aronayaka, joining you live with the latest in Sri Lanka and around the world. We begin with your top story. 2 separate maritime accidents occurred today around the island, one involving a fishing vessel that collided with a merchant vessel off the coast of Galle and another which capsized off the coast of Beruala. 2 fishermen from the accident near Galle tragically passed away and one remains missing, while 2 others who survived the ordeal were located and rescued. Meanwhile, the 2 fishermen involved in the accident in Beruala also remain missing. Authorities are currently searching for the missing fishermen from both incidents. Fishing vessel Dinesh 4, which set out from the Dondra Fisheries Harbour yesterday morning with 5 fishermen on board, was involved in a collision at sea. At around 10 p.m. last night, while sailing approximately 7 nautical miles south of the Galle Fisheries Harbour, the vessel collided with a merchant ship. As a result, all 5 fishermen on board were thrown overboard. 1 fisherman managed to survive by clinging on to the sinking vessel. The survivor was later rescued this morning by a nearby fishing vessel named Nipuni 1. He was brought to the Galle Fisheries Harbour and admitted to the Galle National Hospital. This morning, a Sri Lanka Navy search and rescue vessel, accompanied by several other fishing boats, departed for the sea area where the accident occurred to locate the 4 missing fishermen. Navy divers were also deployed for the mission. Meanwhile, the Sri Lanka Air Force deployed a Bell 412 helicopter and a Y-12 aircraft to carry out reconnaissance and rescue operations under the instructions of Defence Secretary Air Vice Marshal Sampath Tuyakonta. Later, the Navy confirmed that the remains of 2 of the missing fishermen had been recovered and brought to the Galle Fisheries Harbour. The deceased, aged 30 and 56, were identified as residents of Baligama. Several hours later, another fisherman from the capsized vessel was rescued and brought to the Galle Fisheries Harbour. He was admitted to the Galle National Hospital owing to respiratory distress. Rescue missions are still ongoing in search of the remaining missing fishermen from the capsized vessel. Speaking to the media, Director General of the Department of Fisheries and Aquatic Resources, Susantha Kahawatha, commented on the current situation.
We believe
that the accident occurred after the vessel collided with a merchant ship. Therefore, we have the opportunity to obtain information on merchant ships via an instrument that is attached to these ships. We can also do the same for fishing vessels by using their instruments to obtain information about their routes. After we identify the merchant ship, we will inform the Merchant Shipping Secretariat and take legal action against the vessel.
In a similar incident, a dinghy was involved in another accident off Moragala Beruala, where 2 fishermen on board went missing. Relatives of the missing fishermen claimed that lifeguards failed to act responsibly at the time of the incident. The dinghy involved in the accident was later seen floating at sea and was brought ashore by fishermen from another vessel. Further investigations and rescue operations are currently underway to locate the missing fishermen. In a separate development, the Sri Lanka Navy rescued 4 Indian fishermen aboard an Indian fishing boat that capsized in Sri Lankan waters off Thale Manar. During the rescue mission, Navy personnel located the overturned Indian boat, which capsized after being caught in rough seas north of Sand Dune 7, and safely rescued all 4 fishermen. The rescued individuals, identified as residents of Rameswaram, India, were brought ashore by the Navy and provided with necessary assistance. The fishermen, in good health condition, were subsequently handed over to the care of Thale Manor Police.
චන්දුරුසුමේ කාගෙන්ම අපේ සිංහ TV සඳහා සුපිරි ඩීල්. යාඩියා ලොව වැඩියෙන්ම අලෙවි වන ඉලෙක්ට්‍රික් ස්කූටරය අවාන්ස් ඔටෝ වෙතින්.
President Anura Dissanayake emphasized the importance of modernizing public transport services in uplifting Sri Lanka's standards as a country. The head of state made these remarks while launching Project Dream Destination, aimed at modernizing 100 railway stations across the island. Also present at the event, Minister of Transport Bimal Ratnayake said the government is open to the possibility of launching privately operated train services within the scope of tourism. Dream Destination, a project aimed at modernizing 100 railway stations across the island, was ceremonially launched at the Presidential Secretariat last evening.
We have identified the development of railway services as a crucial step toward developing public transport. We expect to implement several initiatives approved under the national budget. The railway line from Kottawa to Avissavela will be modernized through this initiative. We also expect to extend a railway line of about 800 meters from the Katunayaka railway station to Terminal 2 at Bandaranaike International Airport following completion of construction. A 2.3-kilometer railway line will be set up from the Kankasanture industrial zone so that it can be connected to Beliatta via rail. We hope to transform Wayangoda into a logistics hub by facilitating the transportation via rail of containers from 6 provinces for both import and export. Feasibility studies on the project have commenced. No female employees are currently being recruited to certain positions within the railway service. Thereby, we also expect to amend relevant legislation to facilitate this. We will also purchase new trains through the next national budget. If you are willing to operate private trains within the scope of tourism while ensuring that ownership of railway lines remains under the Department of Railways, we are willing to facilitate that. We anticipate your support in modernizing 185 major railway stations across the island.
කටයුත්ත සිදු කිරීම සඳහා තමා අප ඔබතුමාලගේ විශේෂයෙන්ම සහාය බලාපොරොත්තු වෙන්නේ. අපි විශේෂ අවධානයක් යොමු කරලා තිබෙනවා පොදු ප්‍රවාහන පද්ධතියට. ඒක වැදගත් ශේෂ්ඨ.
We are paying special attention to the public transport sector. It is an important sector because of several reasons. An average of 8 road accident-related deaths are recorded in Sri Lanka daily. Should we allow our country to continue down this path, or are we going to change it? We must change it. This is why we must have a strong system of traffic rules. Attention must be given to enforcing traffic rules just as much as is given to strengthening the public service. Modernization of public transport will uplift the country to a novel status. We have deliberated on the investments to be made by the government. We are also ready to open investment opportunities to the private sector. Let us build a strong public transport system.
It will be mandatory for bus drivers to wear seat belts from the 1st of July. Chairman of the National Transport Commission, P.A. Chandrapala, said strict action will be taken against drivers who fail to comply with the regulation.
Although the requirement for drivers to wear seat belts has been in effect since October 1st of 2011 under the provisions of the Motor Traffic Act, according to the National Transport Commission, non-compliance remains widespread. The rising number of road accidents has been partly attributed to the failure of bus drivers to adhere to basic safety measures, including the mandatory use of seat belts. In response to the continued increase in road accidents across the country, the NTC announced that beginning in July, it will strictly enforce the law related to the mandatory wearing of seat belts.
It has been observed that bus drivers who wear seat belts are significantly more successful in controlling their vehicles and avoiding accidents compared to those who do not. Drivers who fail to wear seat belts are more likely to lose control of the bus during emergencies, increasing the risk of the vehicle toppling or causing serious injuries to passengers. Such accidents not only endanger lives but also result in substantial costs that ultimately fall on the government. The requirement for all bus bus drivers to wear seat belts has been in effect since 2011 as mandated through a Gazette notification. However, beginning July 1st, we will be placing special emphasis on the enforcement of this regulation. We will make sure that all bus drivers, including those operating SLTB buses as well as those in the private sector, strictly adhere to this mandate.
ක්ෂේත්‍ර තුනම සඳහා මේ ක්‍රියාත්මක කිරීමට අපි බලාපොරොත්තු වෙනවා.
For the past several months, we have been advising all bus operators to ensure that seat belts are properly installed, particularly in buses that do not currently have them. It has come to our attention that in some buses with number plates containing English letters, the originally installed seat belts are no longer present. If this is the case, it is the responsibility of the operators to reinstall the appropriate seat belts without delay. The Lakdiva Engineering Company and regional workshops are equipped to carry out the necessary repairs and installations. We have also instructed that all the buses must be equipped with seat belts in accordance with safety regulations.
සිනෙක් කැම්පස් ඕපන් ඩේ මැයි මස 3 වැනි දින උදෑසන 9 සිට සිනෙක් කැම්පස් පරිශ්‍රයේදී.
Apico Next Gen. Make the leap to faster sleep.
SSP Shania Besekara has been reappointed the Director of the Criminal Investigation Department. The appointment has been made with the approval of the National Police Commission. SSP Besekara is currently serving as the Director of the Central Crime Investigation Bureau. He will replace SSP Imesha Muthamala as the CID Director. Besekara previously served as the CID Director from 2017 until his transfer in November 2019. And now here's a look at the latest thoughts shared in the political arena regarding the recent alleged abduction of 2 National People's Power councillors of the Waligama Pradeshya Sabha.
Some people kidnapped these councillors and left them at the Unawatuna beach. This scheme was carried out so the councillors would be unable to attend the meeting in time. According to the details currently available to us, a councillor representing an opposition political movement contested the chairmanship, and this movement wanted him to be appointed the chairman. This scheme can be connected with that incident. However, the National People's Power is the ruling party, and we will not allow gangsters to rise again. Around 400 supporters came to besiege the council immediately, yet the councillors arrived alone. How can someone believe this? The government must know that an informed individual can recognize this incident as staged. How can supporters besiege a council like that? The ruling party claims to be the most disciplined party, but this is how they behave. If 2 councillors of the governing party were kidnapped, the government could conduct investigations and arrest the suspects. In this Pradeshya Sabha, the National People's Power has 22 seats and the opposition has 23 seats. The NPP tried their best to persuade the councillors of the opposition. However, since they failed to do so, they thought to sabotage the ballot, which was held yesterday. They conducted this act of sabotage all the while portraying it as if a crime had been committed. Do we have the urge to hide our councillors when we can literally see how much power we have? By the way, Waligama became quite famous for crime in which even IGPs were involved. The opposition are well versed in committing such crimes. This time they experimented with kidnapping. Since we are already defeated, we do not have the urge to commit illegal acts. We obviously lost councils where we had a majority due to corruption. While we endure that, we are people who respect the law and work according to the law. Do you think that the Waligama Pradeshya Sabha is a mysterious place where the governing party's councillors get kidnapped?
House has recommended terminating US funding for nearly 24 programs that conduct investigations into war crimes globally, including in Sri Lanka. The programs also include work in Iraq, Nepal, Colombia, Belarus, Ukraine, Sudan, South Sudan, Afghanistan and the Gambia. The recommendation from the Office of Management and Budget, which was made on the 25th of June, is not the final decision to end the programs, since it gives the State Department the option to appeal. The State Department Bureau said that would like to preserve any war crimes and accountability programs should send their justifications by July 11th. Re-entry visas of Sri Lankans hoping to return to Israel have been extended until July 31st. The decision was taken by the Population, Immigration and Border Authority of Israel, considering the volatile situation due to the conflict with Iran and the suspension of international flights to the country. However, international flights to Israel have now resumed. The Sri Lanka Foreign Ministry noted that following the new directive, Sri Lankans whose re-entry visas may expire during their stay in Sri Lanka will still be allowed to return to Israel and resume employment until July 31st. With that is a look at more news across the island in brief.
Governor of South Australia Frances Adamson visited Gateway College Colombo on the 22nd of June during her official visit to Sri Lanka. The visit celebrated the strengthening educational ties between South Australia and Sri Lanka, particularly through Gateway's successful delivery of the South Australian Certificate of Education. Addressing the gathering, Governor Adamson spoke about the importance of educational partnerships in deepening the people-to-people links between Australia and Sri Lanka. Australian High Commissioner to Sri Lanka Paul Stevens also attended the event. Meanwhile, the Indian Coast Guard has rescued 3 Sri Lankans who had been abandoned on a sandbar near Adams Bridge off the coast of Dhanushkodi in Tamil Nadu. The trio had set off from Sri Lanka in an unidentified boat which dropped them off on the sandbar located in Indian waters. In other local news, 5 individuals have been arrested in connection with a shooting incident that occurred in Tiruppane, Anuradhapura. According to police, the suspects are acquaintances of the individual who sustained injuries in this shooting. The 28-year-old man who sustained injuries in the incident is currently receiving treatment at the Anuradhapura hospital. Further investigations are being carried out by the Anuradhapura Divisional Criminal Investigation Unit.
Welcome back to First at 9. Taking you to business news, India's Magazon Dock Shipbuilders Limited has decided to buy a 51% controlling stake in Sri Lanka's Colombo Dockyard PLC for $52.96 million. Japan's Onomichi Dockyard, which held the shares, decided to exit the company, which made losses after the COVID crisis and some low-margin shipbuilding contracts. Mazagon has signed definitive agreements with Onomichi of up to $22.96 million. In addition to purchasing shares from Onomichi, Mazagon will also purchase securities of the Sri Lankan company through primary subscription. The Ceylon Chamber of Commerce elected chairperson of John Keel's Holdings, Krishan Balendra, as its new chairperson at the 186th Annual General Meeting. Balendra succeeds Duminda Hulangamur, Senior Economic Advisor to the President and Country Managing Partner of Ernst & Young Sri Lanka. Bingumal Thevala Tantri and Vinod Hidramani were appointed Vice Chairperson and Deputy Vice Chairperson respectively for 2025-2026. Kasturi Chelaraja Wilson, Supunvira Singha, Bernard Stephen, Jayanti Dharmasena, Shribani Thambaya and Bonikabahu Pereira were appointed the board of the Ceylon Chamber. With the de-escalation of US-China trade tensions, with President Donald Trump announcing an agreement to expedite the resumption of Chinese rare earths, Fitch upwardly revised its global GDP growth forecast this year to 2.2%. However, this figure is still significantly lower than the growth forecast prior to Trump's sweeping tariff measures. Meanwhile, in stark contrast to the improvement of US-China trade relations, President Trump abruptly cut off trade talks with Canada over its tax targeting US technology firms, saying he would set a new tariff rate on Canadian goods within the next week.
US President Donald Trump said he is cutting off trade talks with Canada immediately ahead of Canada's plan to begin collecting on Monday a previously enacted digital services tax on US technology firms, including Amazon, Meta, Google and Apple. The 3% tax will be levied on the revenue above 20 million Canadian dollars, which these firms take in from Canadian users in a calendar year. Payments will be retroactive to 2022. Trump said the US will let Canada know the tariff they will be paying to do business with America within the next 7-day period. He added that negotiations with Canada would not resume until they straighten out their act. Meanwhile, the White House said the US administration and China agreed on a framework to implement the Geneva Agreement on how the resumption of shipping rare earths and magnets to the US can be expedited. China confirmed details of the agreement yesterday, saying it would approve export applications of controlled items in accordance with the law, but did not mention rare earths. China's Ministry of Commerce said the US side will correspondingly cancel a series of restrictive measures against China. In a significant development, the recent de-escalation in US-China trade tensions led Fitch Ratings to make broad-based upward revisions to its global growth forecasts, with an upward revision of 0.3 percentage points since April. Fitch now forecasts world GDP growth at 2.2% in 2025. However, these rates are well below the 2.9% reached in 2024 and the longer-term average of 2.7%.
That's all for tonight from First at 9. Thank you. Have a great night.